Welcome to the Duffin Theater at Lenox Memorial Middle and High Schools. Please refer to the printed map of the facility's emergency exits in your handouts. In case of fire emergency or power failure, the house lights will come up quickly to allow safe and orderly exit. As you face the stage, exits are located to your left and right rear and at right front near the stage. On stage, exits are located at the corners of the backstage wall. Thank you for your attention.
Do it. I was waiting for 30. Just write down when we start. I suppose I could write it down, but I don't have the official clock, which is right there. We've been waiting for you.
Okay, seeing that it is after 7 o'clock and we do have a quorum, I'm going to call the meeting to order. First, I'd like to introduce or call up Dave Roach, the chairman of the select board, to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I'd like to move to waive the reading of the warrant and return of service thereof. I also move to authorize the moderator to declare a 2/3 vote on voice votes if he deems it to do so.
Is there a second?
Second. All in favor?
I thought you were going to give an explanation.
There's no explanation necessary for that. We've been doing it for years.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you. I guess it's my turn to do some opening remarks, and I'd like to preface that by saying that my dad years ago was asked to be a guest speaker at a high school graduation. And as he was preparing for it, I was talking to him about it, and he said, well, you know, I've been to many, many of these graduations, and I've listened to thousands of speakers or hundreds of speakers. Can't remember much what they said, but the best one was for under 5 minutes. So I'm going to try to do that tonight as well. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to welcome you to our annual town meeting. This is small town government at its best. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. First of all, our town manager, Chris Ketchen, our administrative service director, Mary Ellen Deming, clerk of the Board of Selectmen, Warren Archie, my good friends Ed Lane, Channing Gibson, and Kenny Fowler. I'd further like to recognize one long-term employee retirement this year, and that is our good friend Diana Kirby. Is she here? Diana? Well, good, Diana. I want to say that we, the Board of Selectmen, certainly have worked hard to continue to ensure that we have the best small town anywhere. Some of our accomplishments over the past year certainly start out with the shared town administrator. The towns of Lee and Lenox have begun to develop a shared service model, beginning with town manager and human resources manager. Hopefully more opportunities will present themselves in the coming years. Our town is financially sound. Our town manager will highlight those areas in his presentation, but Lenox is on solid financial ground. While we currently enjoy a robust economy, we have ample reserves to weather economic fluctuations in future years. We enjoy an affordable tax rate while providing outstanding services in all areas. They include emergency services to serve our aging population, excellent schools, and community programs to occupy and challenge our youth. We even seem to be making headway on some of our infrastructure issues. Road, sewer, and water are all at the forefront of our efforts. Are there challenges ahead? Yes. Government-mandated improvements to our sewer plant, outdated and barely functional police and fire facilities, and the cleanup of the rest of the Housatonic River are just a few of the challenges that we need to address in the coming years. Let's briefly talk about last year. We certainly reached a milestone. We celebrated our 250th anniversary, and from a gala ball to kick it off to a fantastic parade and celebration to culminate our special year. While I generally don't thank individuals because I'm apt to forget many who deserve recognition, I will make an exception and thank Olga Weiss for the countless hours she and her committees put into making the 250th a success. I personally have been fortunate enough to now have celebrated both the 200th and the 250th. Not much chance I'll be around for the 300th, but it will have a difficult time outdoing our celebration of the past year. During the past year, you, at our November special town meeting, unanimously voted to assist our town library in efforts to provide increased services to the community. I'm delighted to report that the library has increased hours of operations, has a robust youth program, and is in the process of identifying and displaying town treasures. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you and the town that I grew up in and love. What we have in Lenox is a community effort that makes us what we are and who we are. I'd like to recognize those of you who are on our many boards and committees. So I'd like all of you who serve the town in any capacity to please stand up and be recognized. I, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, thank you. It makes our job easier, and you give us direction and help us determine the goals and the goals of the town. My last comment is kind of a personal one, but I speak on behalf of the entire Select Board and Town Manager when we bid adieu to one of our selectmen. Channing Gibson has served us for 6 years and done an outstanding job in the many areas that he has participated in, and he has had a tremendous influence in determining the direction of several of the community boards and projects. So Channing Gibson, thank you so much for your service. And when we watch Lethal Weapon 5, we can say we know the guy that wrote it. With that being said, Mr. Moderator, I am ready to proceed with Article 1. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I move that this town authorize the selectmen to choose all minor town officials, to wit, field driver, pound keepers, fence viewers, surveyors of lumber, wood and bark, sextons, and sealers of weight and measures.
Is there a second?
Second.
A brief explanation would, with this is an archaic something or other that we have to do every year. So, so here we are. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Call the question one more time. I'm going to kill you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I started out as a selectman, and he was my boss here as a selectman, so I get a chance to get even once in a while. Thank you, John. And I also screw up. Next, certainly somebody who has spent days and weeks preparing a presentation I have forgotten about. So I'd like to call up and introduce our town manager, Chris Ketchen.
the time I'm done, you'll wish that I had forgotten. Mr. Moderator, Christopher Ketchen, 388 Housatonic Street, Chief Administrative Officer and Town Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that introduction. You'll note from the brevity of the warrant that we have almost an entire financial town meeting before us this evening, and it's my intent to go swiftly through our financial background. The presentation tonight will be shorter than it typically is in recognition of the truncated warrant. However, the traditional ability to hold on articles and line items within budgets will remain. So that being said, I'd like to dive in. The $28.5 million budget request will represent just under a 2.5% increase to the total levy over the amount required to fund the budget through taxation in the current fiscal year. There is a slightly lower reliance on free cash to fund our town's capital program next year, which we'll talk about in a moment. The budget fully funds the level service provided by all town departments, as well as provides for some strategic initiatives. And we arrive at a combination of the tax levy as well as the operating budget expenditure requests through conservative local revenue assumptions and the use of the governor's budget for our state aid calculations. So that is more or less, in a nutshell, how the budget is comprised. Here's how it looks. Money primarily comes from the taxation of real and personal property, roughly $15 million, 55% of the town's total revenue stream. The other three primary sources of revenue are the enterprise fund, which fund both our water and our wastewater or sewer operations, without reliance on tax dollars to do so. The aforementioned state aid and local revenue comprising about 12% each, and the aforementioned free cash, 6% or $1.7 million in the coming fiscal year if you fund all of the requests that are made on the warrant. So where does the money go? Primarily it goes to operations of the various town departments, most notably our exceptional and award-winning public schools. In addition, general government, public safety, public works, and the enterprise funds capture the lion's share of the remainder, and there are obviously a pretty strong emphasis on capital spending to improve our infrastructure. So this is the slide that I'm legally obligated to put up every year, and this is the slide that I tell you every year I shouldn't have to talk about. But it's one of those things like the field drivers and the sealer weights and measures that we just have to do. So I'm going to put it up for order of magnitude purposes, and then when November rolls around and we actually set the tax rate, you can forget about it. But the total property valuation of the town is $1.2 billion, looking at a total property tax levy of $15.6 million in the coming fiscal year. That is just south of a 2.5%. Now, here's the caveat. If there's no new growth in town, no property being taxed for the first time, which there always is, and if there is no change in the relative property values between commercial and residential or actual property values, which there always is, then property taxes will grow by the aforementioned 2.45%. Would grow the residential rate from the current $12.14 per thousand to $12.44%, so a 30-cent increase. And then we'll have a similar effect on the commercial, industrial, and personal property, which is taxed at a separate rate of $14.98, growing about 37 cents. So what that means to the average single-family homeowner in the town of Lenox is a $120 increase on a almost $5,000 bill. And for the median homeowner, property valued at $314,000, that's a $94 increase for the entire year. Now, if new growth were to come in on a historical norm, which is about $150,000 of new growth. That's property being taxed for the very first time. So think of the addition on your house or a vacant lot where a new house is built. You can reduce those numbers by about 40%. If new growth comes in as it did last year, you can reduce those numbers by about 80%. So that's an order of magnitude that I'm not willing to commit to because we don't know what property values will be when we go to set the tax rate in November. But if it provides you a helpful point of reference, I'll throw that out there. However, the law requires me to show you this data. Our reserve levels. We, as the chairman said, have very favorable reserve positions. We're at about $3.1 million in free cash. That's after supplemental appropriations made at the November special town meeting, where we funded several capital projects as well as a $50,000 appropriation for the master planning effort. In addition, the stabilization funds are just south of $700,000, $669,000 in total. Those funds require a 2/3 vote before they can be utilized, but they are available for appropriation for any lawful purpose. Our other post-employment benefits trust. This is funding to pay down the town's liability for the promise that has been made to municipal employees to provide for their health insurance in retirement. It's about a $20 million total liability. 90+% of towns and cities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and across the country have not saved a dime towards their liability. Some of it is measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Lenox, on the other hand, has saved $3.6 million, and there's a roughly $700,000 that's programmed to go in with the budget that you will hopefully approve in the next few minutes. Water enterprise retained earnings are just over $1 million. Sewer or wastewater enterprise retained earnings a little over $600,000. And the new special education reserve account, which was created and funded for the first time at last year's town meeting, is at $100,000 with another $50,000 program to go in under one of the articles on the warrant this year. So what are some of the highlights? Again, this budget provides for all existing municipal services. It's a level service budget with several strategic enhancements. It fully funds the budget request of the Lenox Public Schools. This is one of the only towns that I've worked for or seen or heard about where the superintendent's budget and the town manager's budget are unanimously approved and aligned by the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee. It's a very unique and cooperative and collaborative relationship that we all have with one another, and it's something that's very positive and very unique among communities, that we can all be on the same page. So that's a very positive thing in my professional opinion and as a resident and the parent of a child in the schools. Strategic initiatives. This budget request will fully fund the implementation of 24/7 paramedic coverage in our ambulance department. Again, you've already funded through a special town meeting vote the development of a master plan, which the planning board will be working on in the coming year. There's additional funding for traffic mitigation and speed enforcement. Lifeguard coverage at the newly renovated town beach will be available until dusk. And Complete Streets program, which is mostly grant funded, will provide for some safety and pedestrian improvements on our public ways. And we have an enhancement to the health inspection program in the Tri-Town Health Department. So what are some of the noteworthy changes? So as you look at Article 3 and see some of the larger differences, these are some of the explanations for what those are. Beginning first with administration and finance, the top line item, that's a 10% reduction over the current fiscal year. That's mostly attributable to the shared chief administrative officer. By splitting the costs of that position, Lenox saves about $24,000. The fire and ambulance departments, again, will be staffing up for 24/7 paramedic coverage. However, this will be fully funded. We anticipate 100% offset by increased fees, as well as our increased assessment to the town of Stockbridge. When I began working here about 4 years ago, the assessment to the town of Stockbridge for our ambulance service was $3,000, and next year it will be $48,000. So, how do you like that? The town beach, again, will expand lifeguard hours until 8 p.m. or dusk. Again, it's the first fiscal year where the town library that the chairman mentioned earlier will be 100% municipal operated, 100% part of the municipal operating budget. We've spent the last 6 months with that arrangement, and I'd have to say it's working out very well under Director LaFave's leadership. Board of Health, again, the tri-town assessment for additional inspectional services and personnel costs is a larger line item to fill a much needed position in that department. Again, we will see some offset from fees, but this is a change that, in my opinion, has been a long time coming, and I'm thankful to Director Willis for being here tonight in support of this effort. And then there's some reduction in cemetery where we're seeing a better cost experience for the ongoing maintenance of headstones. So, with that being said, I attempted to be brief, and I hope you appreciate the work that the department heads and the various town departments do every day to make Lenox a great place to live, work, and make a home. And I'll also remind you that to put in your calendars a save the date for the 2018 Fall Town Meeting, which will be on Thursday, November 1st, which will be tackling a number of land use and other regulatory issues. It's very important to receive your input, and we look forward to seeing you then. So with that, Mr. Moderator, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Chris. Very nice. Article 2.
Article 2. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $49,768.77 for snow and ice removal costs, said sum to be transferred from free cash as certified on July 1, 2017, and added to the amount appropriated to the snow and ice line item under Article 2 of the warrant for the May 3, 2017 annual town meeting.
Explanation?
Tough winter.
Sounds good to me. Okay. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate funds for the operating expenses of the town for the fiscal year of 2019 as follows.
Hold on for 1 second, Dave. While we do this, this is the budget article, so as he goes down each line item, if there's any line item that you would like to talk about or discuss, just yell hold. I will mark it down, and we'll go back to it after he's completed the entire list.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Administration and Finance, $243,727. Town Treasurer and Clerk, $147,363. Town Collector, $85,262. Compensation Reserve, $70,000. Operations Support, $96,200. Elections and Registration, $8,870. Economic Development, $90,000. Hold on that. Town Debt and Interest, $290,000. Audit and Reserve Account, $628,718. Insurance and Bonds, OPEB, $1,076,641. Land Use Department, $485,691. Town Buildings, $108,097. General Government subtotal, $3,330,568. Police Department, $1,138,874. Fire Department, $531,030. Emergency Management, $30,201. Ambulance Squad, $400,049. Public Safety subtotal, $2,154. Lennox Public Schools, $12,917,715. Hold on that. Vocational Education, $85,000. Educational subtotal, $13,002,715. Highway Department, $604,264. Snow and Ice, $257,005. Other storm emergencies, 0. Cemetery, $111,409. Total Public Works subtotal, $972,678. Board of Health, $181,578. Hold on that. Veteran Services, $70,113. Human Services total, $251,691. Community Center, $373,766. Academy Building, $7,824. Historical Commission, $10,950. Celebrations, $2,200. Historic District Commission, 0. Cultural and Recreation subtotal, $394,740. Lennox Library, $341,251. Lennox Library subtotal, $341,251. Totals, $20,393,797.
Is there a second on the budget? Okay, we have 3 holds, so
if you just come down.
what I'd like to do is work on. So we're going to talk about each one individually, and when we're done with one, we'll move to the next, and then we will vote on the motion after that. But before we do that, David, Town Collector, 85,261 or 262? You said 262.
Town Collector I have here is 85,261.
Okay, so that's right. Okay, the first hold was on economic development, $90,000. Discussion?
I can make an explanation, and I can. Last year it was it was about $15,000 left, if I'm not mistaken, and that was because we had a carryover of cash from the previous year to that. So what we're doing now is going back to what it was 2 years ago, and bringing it back up to $90,000. It's what we invest in marketing the town, and the returns, as you know, roughly $2.5 million, between $2.5 and $3 million in our tourist and motel taxes and room and meals taxes. I think the $90,000 is a small amount to pay for that return.
Okay, I didn't say this earlier, but if you would like to speak, just stand up and walk down to the bottom of the stairs and wait for me to address you, then go to one of these 2 mics here. So if you would like to address something, just come down and stand in front of one of the mics, and then you can be addressed by me so you can speak.
Aaron Gazit.
Hello, Aaron.
You got, where your house address?
1 Martha Lane. I absolutely agree with you. To spend $90,000 on marketing when you get a return of that's less than 5%. The more you'll spend on marketing, the more income you'll get. We can prove that. I didn't put the hold, but when I did the math, I'm appalled. I also know a little bit about marketing. I also spend about 30% of that sum just to market my own local business. I know other inns spend similar amounts. So that's ridiculous, sir. And that number needs to go up. And it needs to go up to about 30% of the income from our efforts so that we can remarket and make sure that the town gets more money, not less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second hold. Lenox Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Roach and Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ketchen, and Moderator, Mr. McNinch, for allowing me to make this presentation. I speak on behalf of the school committee, Fran, Molly, Christine, Bob, Dave, and Neil.
You have to tell them who you are, too.
Oh, Bob Vaughn, 10 Post Road. I'm sorry. I intended to do that. First off, we'd like to thank Neil for his service on the committee for the nearly 4 years. He's both stepping down as well as stepping up, as you'll have a chance to vote for him on Monday to a different and equally or maybe more challenging elected position. I'd like to recognize and thank all of the educators and support staff, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers. Everyone is part of the effort. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, and we have a lot to appreciate. I'd also like to recognize some teachers who are retiring: Marion Vaness, Evelyn Larajon, Mary Kay Pinkham at Morris, and David Fisher right here at LMMHS. These are people I've known and worked with over the last 35 years, and their work with our youngest and oldest students has been representative of what has brought us to national acclaim. And you'll be able to see in about a week, or a couple weeks, you better see David's improv group perform right here. Poorly Timed Sneezes, I think is the name of it. On a sadder note, last summer we lost our much-beloved school nurse, Mary Jane Pignatelli. To honor her life and dedication to our students, her family is establishing a scholarship in her memory. There'll be a fundraiser on May 17th at the Old Heritage Tavern to raise money for the scholarship, and your support is much appreciated. Tim Lee, our superintendent, will be resigning his position this year to return to working more closely with students. And after giving us a very strong decade of service, first at Morris and for the last 4 years as our superintendent, we thank him and we wish him well. I'd like to thank the over 200 parents, community members, faculty, staff, and students who responded to our superintendent search survey. It was out for 2 weeks, and we had 201 responses, most of those within the first 5 or 6 days. It's given the search committee valuable insights that will help us in the selection process for the next superintendent. I also want to thank the Lenox 250th Committee. After a year of wonderful events celebrating the town's heritage, the committee made a very generous contribution to the Walker Fund here at the high school, which supports students who might otherwise not be able to afford some school trips and events. Thank you for the great events, activities, and the significant contribution. Finally, I wish to bring your attention to a significant project that will call for some town action in the next year or two. Our science rooms in the high school wing are in need of major revamping. They go back over 50 years to the original 1966 building project, as they were not part of the 1998 renovation. Much has changed in the last half century with the sciences. Our superintendent has had initial concept work done according to recent Massachusetts standards for science classrooms, and has been keeping the school committee informed of the needs to modernize these spaces. We expect that proposals will be developed over the next year, while we also explore funding avenues with the state. I thought it was important that you hear about it now, because it will be something we'll be talking about over the next year or so. Now, the school department portion of the town budget is significant, and I want to talk briefly about it. Our superintendent, Tim Lee, recognizes the balance needed to both resource a high-performing school district and to be responsible and collaborative fiscal custodians of taxpayer funds. To this end, and not wishing to take for granted the high level of support that we've received over decades from all of you, from our community, he's worked in concert with the town leaders to place the school's needs in context with the town's needs. He's truly been preparing over the last 4 years a zero-based budgeting process, and the budget before us tonight came in well under the town manager's guidelines and has been approved by the school committee, selectmen, and finance committee, and it's approximately 2.4%. The guideline had been about 3%. The school committee and I thank you for your continued support and hope you'll support our budget tonight. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn. Next hold.
Board of Health. There was a hold on Board of Health. Anyone want to make a comment on that?
I can make a brief explanation, if you'd like me to, Mr. Moderator.
If you'd like.
The Board of Health budget did increase some significance this year. It went from $135,863 to $181,578. And the reason for that is that the tri-towns are experiencing some economic growth, and there was a need to increase the staff within the Board of Health. Now, we fully expect that through inspection fees and other fees that we will recoup about 75% of that increase.
David Newbert, 140 Plunkett Street. I'm a member of the Finance Committee, and one thing that's interesting about town budgets when you see them increase that I've learned in our process is that the departments of the town that actually generate revenue, we don't see them, we don't see the revenue side or the net cost of the town. So like in this case, when we're hiring somebody new, we, and then that, let's say we hire somebody for an extra $60,000, but it generates $90,000 in revenue. The town net just made $30,000, but it shows up on our official forms as a $60,000 increase, not a $30,000 decrease. And there's a series of these, like from the community center is a big one, the ambulance services. Yeah. So there's a whole series of these that are out there. This falls a little bit in that category. So just thought I'd share that. So.
Thank you,
Dave. And I think if you read the Finance Committee's explanation, Elliot Morris did a really, and Vikas did a really nice job of setting it out, making it look more like an actual business for the town than what the municipal accounting standards require of us. So,
thank you. And I think it's important to point out, and thank you, Dave, for making this point, is that all of these budget increases or all of these budget numbers were unanimously approved by our Lenox Finance Committee.
Okay, seeing no more discussion. All in favor with Article 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 4.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to make the following appropriations to fund the fiscal year 2019 budget for the water department. Water operations, $630,285. Debt service, $712,475. And capital expenditures, $50,000, for a total of $1,392,760. And to provide for said appropriations from the following sources of revenue and available funds. User charges, $1,342,760. Retained earnings, $50,000, for a total of $1,392,760.
Is there a second? Second. Explanation.
So as we all know, the water department runs as an enterprise fund, a system where the user charges and other departmental revenues are used to fund the department.
Okay, all in favor of Article 4, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to make the following appropriations to fund the fiscal year 2019 budget for the sewer department. Sewer operations, $834,433. Debt service, $774,244. Capital expenditures, $320,000, for a total of $1,928,677. And further, to provide for said appropriations from the following sources of revenue and available funds. User charges, $1,608,677. Retained earnings, $320,000, for a total of $1,928,677.
Second.
Exactly the same explanation as the water department. It's an enterprise fund, and all this money is raised to run the wastewater treatment plant and sewer department.
Okay, all in favor of Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, Article 6, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,708,940 for the following capital expenditures. Highway Department expenditures, $810,000. School Department expenditures, $270,200. Fire Department expenditures, $25,000. Police Department expenditures, $30,000. Town buildings and equipment expenditures, $66,000. Academy building, $5,000. Community center expenditures, $353,740. Land use expenditures, $10,000. Town clerk expenditures, $8,000. Ambulance expenditures, $131,000. And further, to provide for said appropriations to transfer from free cash as certified July 1, 2017, the sum of $1,683,469.
Is there a second? Explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town has over $60 million worth of capital assets, and it requires a robust fiscal effort to maintain property and reinvest in infrastructure, buildings, and equipment. And this is one of the things I think that makes this town unique, or not unique, but a very good town, that we're taking care of business. We're taking care of these expenditures as they're needed instead of letting it crop up on us and costing us more in the long run. And it's a huge amount of money, so I'd like to just run over very quickly what these expenditures are for. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer. In the highway department, it's new drainage pipe from Willow Lane that's off of Housatonic Street, nearly down to the bypass. $50,000 for repair to a retaining wall near 86 Housatonic Street. It's been falling down for years. They're going to pave the Church on the Hill Cemetery parking lot and provide funding for a new plow truck for its a scheduled replacement. The school department is $270,200, and that's to begin, correct me if I'm wrong, not right, Bob, but the science lab work, correct?
Largely for some of the, it's not the science lab work I was talking about in my presentation. It's some work to redesign an old area and move some technology around.
Okay, thank you. Fire department is $25, and that's for equipment upgrades. Police department is $30,000, and that's to replace the unmarked cruiser. Town building, $66,000, and that's a new generator to be put at the new Lenox Fire Station, and contingency funds set aside for the library and center school. And then Academy building is $5,000 for just general repairs. Community center is, we're going to replace a roof there, $20,000 for playground equipment at Orbed Park, and we're going to replace the hardwood floor on the first floor. The land use expenditures are $10,000 for the Kennedy Park, the kiwi removal, which I understand is going along very well. And town clerk expenditures are $10,000 to replace the voting machines. And then ambulance expenditures, $85,000 for extra funding for a new ambulance that we appropriated money for last year, but we're coming up a little short. And then defibrillators are $46,000. So that's where it's all being spent.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Article 7. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept funds being provided by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under the provisions of Chapter 90 of the General Laws to pay for such costs as allowed by appropriate legislation in connection with the maintenance, repair, and construction of town ways and bridges.
Explanation?
It was a tough winner. Wrong answer. The right answer. Per state law, each year we seek voter approval to accept state funding for road work in town. We expect to receive $284,116 in Chapter 90 funds this year, which will support repaving work.
All in favor of Article 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 8.
Good evening. Anthony Patella, 8 Bentrup Court, Chairman, Community Preservation Committee. Mr. Moderator, Chief Administrative Officer, and Town Manager Christopher Ketchen, Board of Selectmen. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to let everybody know that the annual Community Preservation Committee public hearing will be held Monday, June 11th at Town Hall. This is a great opportunity to let the committee know what you as citizens of the town of Lenox think the current and future needs and possibilities are for community preservation projects. We'll share with you information about the application process, reviewing the standards, and where we stand with our CPA resources. Article 8. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund and or reserves in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for project debt service in fiscal year 2019. Library debt service, $123,500.
Explanation?
The purchase of the library building was approved by town meeting several years ago. Along with the town meeting authorization to borrow the money for the purchase comes the obligation to annually appropriate funds toward the annual debt service payments.
All in favor of Article 8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Annual Reserves in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2019, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. Appropriations, fiscal year 2019, estimated reserves for administrative expense, $18,750. Reserves, fiscal year 2019, estimated reserves for historic resources, $37,500. Fiscal year 2019, estimated revenues for community housing, $37,500. Fiscal year 2019, estimated revenues for open space, $37,500. Fiscal year 2019, estimated revenues for general unreserved, $243,750 for a total of $375,000. Estimated new surcharge collections for fiscal year 2019, $300,000. Estimated state match for fiscal year 2019, $100,000 for a total of $400,000.
Is there a second? Explanation?
This is a housekeeping item. Under the Community Preservation Act, we are required to appropriate 10% to historic resources, community housing, and open space sleeves, respectively. The Act allows the town to make an appropriation for the committee's administrative needs also during the fiscal year.
All in favor of Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Article 10. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate a reserve from the Community Preservation Fund and a reserves in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses and community preservation projects and other expenses in fiscal year 2019, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. Trinity Church, $41,000. The Mount, $75,000. Frelinghausen Morris House, $19,185. Town of Lenox Community Gardens, $7,745. Town of Lenox Shared Use Path, $20,000. Town of Lenox Affordable Housing Trust, $250,000.
Is there a second? Second. Explanation?
Trinity Church. This is to assist with the restoration and repointing of the western elevation of the church building, which is on the National Historic Register. This is part of an $83,000 project. The Mount, to assist in restoring the 3,100 square foot terrace at the mansion. Frelinghausen Morris House and Studio. This is to restore a veranda on the National Register modern architecture building housing the art collection and open to public tours. Town of Lenox Community Garden. Town of Lenox Shared Use Path Feasibility Study. This is a fund to study the potential routes of a community-wide shared youth path to connect open space and recreation opportunities with cultural and historic sites throughout and in Lenox. This will be we will be able to deliver and implement a program including costs or land or easement acquisitions necessary to implement this route with this $20,000. Town of Lenox Affordable Housing Trust. This is to help fund, this is $250,000 of which was originally a $500,000 request. This is to help fund the implementation of the town housing production plan.
Where is the community garden?
I'm John. Shakespeare. It will be currently behind Shakespeare and Company.
Along Old Stockbridge Road.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. All in favor of Article 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Moderator, in closing, on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Channing for his guidance, your leadership, your dedication, and your thoughtful approach to the Community Preservation Committee and to the town. We wish you and your family much success and happiness in the coming years, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work alongside you. So, thank you.
Article 11.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town appropriate the sum of $6,100,000 to pay the costs of designing and constructing a new water main, sewer main, and sidewalk along Old Stockbridge Road, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, subject to the execution of an agreement between the Board of Selectmen and the developer of the Elm Court property to pay all related costs associated with the aforementioned design and construction, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7.1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there a second? Second. Explanation.
To put this article in very simple terms, a vote to approve will allow the town to replace a water line down Old Stockbridge Road that's over 100 years old will allow the town to replace and extend what is now a decrepit sewer main, we think the one in the worst repair in town, and to install a sidewalk along much of Old Stockbridge Road, and for the town to be reimbursed for all of the associated costs by the developers of Elm Court with an upfront guarantee of performance bond that will ensure payment of those costs. No tax dollars or user charges will be spent, and no work will be done, however, until the town and the Elm Court developers have executed an agreement detailing all of what I just said. Should you approve the article, we expect the process of reaching that agreement to take place in the next few weeks. All of this is required of the developers as conditions of the special permits issued to them by both the Stockbridge Board of Selectmen and the Lenox Zoning Board of Appeals. And it will have the benefit to the town of Lenox, it will benefit the town of Lenox by saving us millions of dollars in inevitable infrastructure costs.
Okay. All in favor of Article 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 12.
I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $50,000 to the Special Education Reserve Fund from funds appropriated to the school department under Article 2 of the warrant for the May 3rd, 2017 annual town meeting.
Is there a second?
Is that date
Explanation?
right?
No, that's right.
Okay. The purpose of establishing this fund is to provide stability in the delivery of public education that could otherwise be adversely impacted by costs associated with special education, which were unforeseen at the time that the annual fiscal appropriation for the school department was adopted at the town meeting. Unforeseen costs are those for which neither experience nor reasonable judgment nor planning could have anticipated. Use of special education stabilization funds will require a majority vote of the selectmen and the school committee. We're allowed to, as of last year, create this fund. $100,000 was put into it. We're capped at a certain percentage, and the max that the fund can have in it is somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000. So and obviously, if we use some of it during a year, then we can bring it back up to that $200,000. This will bring the fund to $150,000.
All in favor of Article 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board, Mr. Ketchen. My name is Mary Beth Mitz. I live at 20 Dunmore Court, and I'm the chairperson of the Affordable Housing Trust. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Is there a second? Explanation?
The Lenox Housing Production Plan, which was developed over a 5-year period, or is for a 5-year period, 2017 to 2021, had 5 important key findings. That, first of all, approximately 47% of Lenox households are of low and moderate income. To put this in perspective, for a household of 2, this means that the maximum annual income is $51,200. For Lenox, affordable housing is not only a matter of basic social fairness, it's also an economic development imperative. Lenox currently does not have enough housing for employees of the town and many local businesses and people who work in many local businesses that can afford to rent or buy. Lenox has no low and moderate income home ownership units on the Chapter 40B subsidized housing inventory currently. What we do have is 178 units currently listed, and they're mainly age restricted. So we're looking to develop a larger inventory of both homeownership and rental housing units, and we're looking for these funds to help us with that.
All in favor of Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Channing Gibson. He's been our liaison for the last 6 years. He's given a great deal of time and energy to the cause of affordable housing in Lenox. He's been our champion, and I wish him all the best.
We're going to miss Channing. Mr. Moderator, Article 14. I move that the town vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 for the Fire Engine Stabilization Fund.
Is there a second? Explanation.
The cost of fire apparatus is getting to be extremely expensive. And in order to defray that cost when a time comes when we need to buy a piece of fire equipment, we put in money every year into a savings account for that particular purpose. This year we're asking for $175,000. We have a new piece of fire apparatus being delivered hopefully this summer, and then we'll be starting to save for the next piece of fire apparatus. So it's just a rainy day fund for fire equipment.
All in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Article 15, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 111F, regarding leave with pay for incapacitated employees.
Is there a second?
So, may I? So years ago, we should have, this is our mistake, apparently years ago, even in as early as the early 80s, late 70s, there was a law passed that we didn't adopt at the time, but we need to adopt it now. It's specifically for firefighters and policemen who are injured on duty. They are not entitled to workman's compensation, and this law provides for them to be paid while they are incapacitated and until they can return to duty.
All in favor of Article 15, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish a charter review committee for the purpose of reviewing the town's special act charter, created under Chapter 155 of the Acts of 1991 as amended. Said committee shall consist of 5 members appointed by the Board of Selectmen. The committee shall prepare a report of their review to include recommendations for any proposed amendments to said special act charter to be completed on or before January 15th, 2020. Upon receipt of the report, the Board of Selectmen shall, within 30 days, hold a public hearing to receive community input on that report.
Is there a second? Explanation.
Even a healthy body needs to be examined now and then, and that's exactly what this is really about. It's been almost 30 years since we passed this, and those of you may have remembered I stood at this podium about 6 years ago with this same sort of article, and it was defeated because at that point in time it was generated from a public point. It was this time it's from us. So I'd like to see us vote on this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of Article 16, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
You can do it, Dave.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town bring their votes for 1 or more members of each of the following town officers. 1 moderator for 1 year, 2 selectmen for 3 years, 1 Board of Health member for 3 years, 1 Board of Health member for 2 years, 1 assessor for 3 years, 3 school committee members for 3 years, and 1 planning board member for 5 years.
It's actually not a motion, it's just an announcement to make sure you guys make it out to the town meeting, the town vote, elections. On what date, Dave?
What's that?
On what date? Monday.
Monday.
Okay, that sort of wraps everything up, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you all for coming to the town meeting.
Second.
Is there a second? All set.
Thank you all.